Hey all, so I woke up really in the mood for some naan bread today, so I'm going to make some of that here now in this video. And I'm going to make a yeast naan bread with some coriander and some ground almonds. And so we're going to get on that now. And it's a longer version of naan bread, of course, because it's got to be proved, it's got the yeast in it, and we're going to have a nice fluffy raised bread. So we're going to do it that way, and we're going to start that now. Okay, so I've got some strong white bread flour which I'm going to use for this recipe. I'm going to use the strong white bread flour because it's got a higher gluten content, a higher protein content, so it's going to create the gluten strands a lot better, and it's going to be better for kneading and creating a lighter, fluffier and more well-raised bread. So we're going to use this flour for that. So I'm putting in 500 grams of this flour. And to this, I'm going to add a good teaspoon of baking powder, just a little bit more there, just over a teaspoon. I'm also going to add a teaspoon of salt. Alright, to this, I'm going to add 60 grams of ground almonds. And a heaped tablespoon of Madras curry powder. And that's all our dry ingredients. Right, now we've got some wet ingredients which we're going to do separately in this bowl. So I've got here 150 millilitres of, I've got almond milk. You can choose any milk you want. I've got almond milk. And this has been warmed in the microwave. So I've given this about 45 seconds in the microwave to get it quite warm. Not hot, just warm. To this I'm going to add about 200 millilitres of vegan yoghurt. And I've chosen the Greek style yoghurt here, but you can pick any one that you want. Now I want this quite sweet, so I'm going to add 4 tablespoons of caster sugar. This is golden caster sugar. 3, 4, that's 4 tablespoons there. And I'm going to add to this a tablespoon of dried yeast. And now I'm going to whisk all of this together just to get it nicely blended. This is our wet mix right here, and this has got the yeast in, so we're going to leave this for 15 minutes for the yeast to do a little bit of work. So we're just going to leave this aside now, 15 minutes, let it foam up a little bit, and then we're going to add it to the dry mix. Okay, while that's resting, I'm going to chop up a quite large handful of coriander, which we're going to put in with the final mix. I'm just going to leave a lot of the stem out there and just do mostly leaves. Give this a good old rough chop, and that then we're going to mix in. So we've got quite a coriander-filled naan bread at the end. So I'm now going to put the coriander in with the dry ingredients. And our wet ingredients have now had some time, so I'm just going to pour that in into the dry. As much of that out as I can. And now we're going to mix this through, and if it comes up a little bit wet, don't worry, we can always add a little bit more flour. Let's see what we've got here. This is starting to form into little lumps, which is what we want. And that should be quite sufficient to knead it into a dough. I think it's a little dry, so I'm going to add a touch more milk, about another 50 ml of milk, just to wet it a little bit. Okay, so I've brought it all together now into this dough. I'm just going to knead it out on the work surface, on a bit of a floured work surface, for about 5-7 minutes. Okay, so this is our dough, and it's all got a nice stretchiness to it now, and we've kneaded it for about 6 or 7 minutes, so it's got that beautiful sort of stretchiness to it now. And we're going to put it now in just a tub. I'm going to put a little bit of oil on this to cover it, and then we're going to cover it with a towel, and then we're going to prove it for an hour. So we're going to leave that for an hour, let it double in size, and then we'll come back to knocking it back, and we'll shape it into the naan bread. Alright, so this has had now just over an hour of proving next to a radiator, and you can see it's got a good size now. It's sort of doubled and then some. So we're just going to take this now, knock all the air out of it, and then we're going to start rolling it into our shapes. Okay, so just knock all the air out of it, give it another little knead, Get all the air out, so you've just got your dough again. And you'll notice it's a much lighter dough now. So once it's rolled, cut it into 6 pieces. So half, and then into thirds, like so. And then this half into thirds also. Now take each one and roll it into a ball. Just like that. Alright, so on a floured surface, just roll one of your dough balls out and try and get it sort of as close to a teardrop shape as you can. You can do a round if you want, it's not a big deal. We'll see what I come up with here. That's pretty much good. Okay, so this is one of our naan bread shapes. Now we're going to heat a pan up and we're going to cook this in a hot pan. Alright, so make sure your pan's quite hot and then just add a little bit of oil. Probably about a tablespoon of oil. And just swirl that around a bit. Remember, make sure this is hot, make sure the oil's hot. Right, so now just place the bread in and just let that cook for a couple of minutes on each side. Right, it's had a couple of minutes, so I'm just going to turn that over and just do the other side for a bit. We'll do the side for a bit longer as well, so it will cook this part. But you can see now it's nice and browned on that side. So a couple more minutes on that side. Okay, so I've flipped it over a couple of times now on each side. And I just wanted this kind of brown, you know, get a little bit darker on this side. And I'm going to do the same now for the other side. So it's totaling, say, around about 5 minutes or so each side, just to give it that, make sure it's rising okay and give it this sort of little bit of firmness on top. Alright, so the next one is ready to go in. The oil and the pan are hot. So we just carry on like this until all 6 are used up, and then we'll keep them in the oven warm, or you can sort of cool them down and have them later, whichever you prefer. Alright, ready to turn this one over. Oh, it's looking good. Okay, so these are cooked and you've kept them warm in the oven. The next step is to just take some melted vegan butter or margarine and just brush the tops and the bottoms of them. This you do just prior to serving. So when you're ready to serve, a little bit of this on each side, and that is it. You are ready to serve them with whatever great Indian meal you're going to cook. Alright guys, so here we go. Unbelievably delicious naan bread, ready to serve up, beautifully cooked. And this is the ones with the yeast. You can make them with just baking powder. A slightly different recipe for that, which we'll do at some point. But these are the ones where you leave to prove, and they're just lovely and light and fluffy and amazing with a beautiful almond taste as well. So hope you get to make these and enjoy them.